Okay, I would like to call the March 4, 2025 meeting of the Carver Select Board back in session, or back to order. The time is 6:30. This meeting is being recorded by Area 58 Community Access Media Channel 9, and we posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the front page on our website for a listing and application. Would you all mind please standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we've been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen.
All right, next item on the agenda, citizens' participation. Would anyone like to come up to the mic? Well, would anyone like to speak from citizens' participation? Seeing none? Okay. We've got a joint meeting tonight with the Finance Committee and the Capital Outlay to review recommendations for this year's fiscal budget and capital plan. I would ask those committee members to open their meeting separately.
Sure. I'd like to open the Town of Carver Capital Outlay Committee tonight. The time is 6:32 p.m.
Finance Committee?
And I will open the Finance Committee meeting at 6:32 p.m.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is, the budget meeting might take longer, so I think we'd like to take the capital outlay recommendations first. That way, once we're done, if members choose to leave, they could leave. That makes sense? Oh, and you're welcome to stay.
No, I think that makes sense. We were hoping if we could go first tonight.
Okay, great.
All right.
So, I know the Finance Director, Karen, would you like to walk us through the process for capital outlay funds, how you came up with them, and what you feel about the current recommendations?
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Chair, the Capital Committee, in working with the departments, the process began in the fall, around October. We met with the departments over the summer, and in October, we had a kickoff meeting just to go over what we're looking for the capital. So all the departments put together an individual capital request sheet, and that capital request sheet just gave information on what the capital project was, what some of their needs were, if there were any operating costs associated with that particular capital project, and then there were criteria in terms of listing, criteria in terms of it being urgent, or what their, how soon they needed the information, if it was something in terms of safety. And so we met as a group and went over all the projects. We've had several meetings with the Capital Committee, and the Capital Committee was able to hear from each department that was requesting a capital project. The Capital Committee also had the opportunity to meet with the department heads asking for capital projects and actually see some of the capital needs. I know that some of the members of the Capital Committee were able to look at the fire apparatus and were able to go to some of the other departments just to see that the needs for the capital projects were, it's easier sometimes to see a visual to understand, what the need is compared to just looking at it on paper. So the departments submitted, and I submitted all the requests. We met with the Capital Committee several times going over prior capital projects. There were a lot of prior capital projects that had balances. So during the year, as we were meeting, we, thought it would be best to, if the project is complete, to just close it out. instead of continuing or using that balance, whether it was $10 or $15 for future capital projects. So what we're doing moving forward is if there's a capital project, it's been funded, it's completed, we're not using it, we're going to close it out, and then that gives the select board the opportunity to just allocate funds from free cash to cover new capital projects. So each year, it's an easier process to be able to go through and understand the status of where they are on the projects. We also have been meeting, I've been meeting with the departments and requesting a quarterly update. So we have quarterly updates in terms of where they are with the projects, what the status is, if there are any delays or commitments have been made for the capital project. So I think the capital process has gone very smoothly this year, and it's been very transparent. And I think the most important thing we were trying to do this year compared to last year was allow everyone on the capital committee, the finance committee, and the select board to have an opportunity to understand what the projects were, to be able to make a decision on what they wanted to fund without the departments coming and already making a decision on what projects they wanted to move forward with. So I think that each committee had the opportunity to work in the area that they were, the committee has been set up for. So what you have in front of you, there's 2 sheets. We have a list of the capital requests that were requested by the department, and we have a list of the capital projects that were actually approved by the capital committee. As we were looking at funding, we're still waiting for our free cash to be certified. One of the financial policies for the town of Carver is that we do not use free cash to fund the operating budgets, which would be all your town departments and the school budgets, and that free cash is strictly to be used to put into stabilizations where we save money or to use for capital projects. So this year, we have allocated 1.3. We're waiting for free cash to be certified so it can be official, that we'll be using that. But I feel comfortable that, we'll have that amount to be able to cover the capital project.
Great.
And so I'll be able to turn it over to the chair,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
I'll turn over to the chair to have any comments.
Sure. So this year was a great year, we felt like, on the Capital Committee. Just so you guys know, we did actually get out and do several site visits, which was something new for us. We haven't done that the past few years. It was really nice to see the stuff that we've purchased in the past, as well as some of the stuff that's being asked for this year. So we were able to go to police, we went to EMS, we went to the fire station, we did a walk behind the Council on Aging, and we went to the school and saw the library. So it was educational for us to know exactly what we're purchasing. So we had a lot of requests that came through, just so you guys know, it was over 4 million. And what we decided was we did have to make some cuts. And we are gonna also propose that we go out to bond. So this year, what we're looking to do is to go out to bond for a fire truck, a ladder truck. That would be for 2.4 million. The other thing that's on our capital project that's not gonna be in the pool of money that we use is going to be the ambulance. That comes out of the ambulance's enterprise fee. So what we came down with towards the end, and we did vote last night and approved all of these, was that we would like to have the balanced budget at $1.3 million. So everybody should have a sheet, and thank John Cotter, he did a lot of work on this sheet, that tells you exactly what we recommended and what we did. So we were able to approve all of the items that were requested, except we did have to, instead of doing 2 school buses, we had to do 1 this year. So that brought us down by $130,000. We also had to remove the elementary school berm behind the school. That was something they said wasn't number 1, but it was on their list of a priority. And we also had to remove $10,000 from the library upgrades at the middle high school. So they asked for 120, and we were able to do 110, which we believe should be enough money for them. They were still getting quotes. And we did look at that project, and they do need some updates for the
Sure.
furniture. Does anyone have any other comments? No. So we did vote last night, just so you guys know, we voted as capital outlay 4-0.
And Also, if you look at this schedule, the 1.3 million, there's an adjustment of energy efficiency project that is listed under O&M, but it's for the, school buildings. So it kind of just worked out this way. Of the 1.3 million, it's almost split 50-50 between the town and the school. So it's a nice spread of the capital money so that everybody benefits from it. I guess the board has, does the board have any questions with regards to some of the detail you have in your books versus the spending?
So just a quick one, I have two sheets. I have one that's showing 4,050,000 here, and then I have another one that's showing 4.15 million, which is this handout. And so I was just trying to reconcile. One seems to be.
Well,
The one, 4.15 is shows everything, and the 4.05 shows everything plus what was cut, shows what was
Is
cut.
that the difference between the two?
yeah.
That's what Ms. Privak told us.
So the difference is 160, and the chair explained the difference between what was approved and what was requested.
So that 160 is made up of the school bus, the berm behind the elementary school, and the $10,000 that we reduced on the library.
So, Mr. Ryan, this is the proposed, right? These are the proposed from all the department heads, and then the other list is just the approved.
Oh, this is
That's the proposed,
That's the proposed.
yeah, and the other list is the approved, yes.
This shows 160,000 cut out of a 4,150, which doesn't add up to the 4,050.
No, it's 4 million. This one, it's 4,350,000 was asked. That was approved. The reduction is 160.
Then what's this number?
What's the? Sure what that came.
Well, that's my question.
Yeah,
Is
that's-
that you have two different sheets that have two different numbers
You want
on
to take a
them.
look at this, Karen, and
It's
just explain?
100,000
It looks like
bucks.
a different sheet than what we voted
So
on.
the
last time.
sheet that was,
The updated that you handed out?
the capital outlay 2026 sheet that you have is a sheet that was prepared by the capital committee showing the different projects. The report that I provided says FY26 capital project request shows the total projects that were approved.
Yeah, so this sheet and this sheet don't agree, that's all I'm saying. There's something different
Okay, I
with
didn't
the
prepare
numbers.
that sheet, so I,
All right, so at some point we should know what the
and
final number is.
excuse me, through you, Mr. Chair, so the final number is 4,050,000.
And there,
And
that's not what you guys are saying.
So, well, that's different than what
You're out of sync.
we voted, Karen. What's your 4,050,000? Because we approved 4,150,000 last night. The 100,000 was I think, remember we split the energy efficiency project to be 50-50 for the gas boy system and the energy efficient project?
That's what they voted on.
Oh,
Yeah, and then
between
they-
the school and town?
They didn't.
Is that what you were
vote on
saying?
this, They made a lot of the different things, and then they voted.
That's,
Yeah.
so this, the question is, we just gotta reconcile them.
I'll go through these numbers, but I believe the budget is the 4,050,000. The amount that's on here, the reductions, when you look at the sheet, there are two, where you look at the energy efficiency project on the capital outlay 2026 sheet, it says 50,000, 50,000, but then it shows reduction of 50,000 and an increase of 50,000, but the original request for that was 100.
Yes.
Not 50. So I will be glad to go through the sheet that was put together by the capital committee and the projects that were requested. I did go through to reconcile that these were the projects that were approved, but I have no problem with putting together, adding another column on my sheet showing the original request.
Okay, but I'm still confused. Are we approving 4,150,000 or 4,050,000?
We are only approving 4,050,000, and that covered the 1.3 that we allocated from free cash, 350 for the ambulance receipts, and the bond authorization of the 2.4. If you wanted it to be 1.4 million,
Is the difference the ARPA vehicles, those two ARPA articles?
we have two projects in here that are covered through ARPA. So you have electrical vehicles and the town
That might
hall
be the-
Yeah,
generators.
and that's
but they-
$100,000, that's
Which
the
is not
difference, that's the
included in free
difference, I
cash.
think, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
And
All right.
one of the things that we did this year that was different than the previous years, that we put all funding sources. So some of the projects in the past could have received CPA funding, some of them received ARPA, but we wanted to recognize all the projects with all funding sources, but the projects that were approved are strictly from projects that are going to be allocated with funding that's going to be voted through the warrant.
And I think that was an excellent improvement. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would just say that what Karen's done with regards to capital, with regards to identifying it, breaking it out, the difference between maintenance and it's truly capital, and just going forward, we just need to maintain that these funds that are being approved are getting spent. So, I guess go back to my original question with regards to items on here. Does the board have any questions, issues, or concerns with any of these items?
I have one.
She wants.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just curious, I'm sorry I wasn't at that meeting. You have as the priorities numbered 1 through 5. And I noticed that the town hall replacement generator, which was priority 5, being the lowest, was cut, but the town hall floor replacement, also priority 5, was kept. Is that correct?
It's switched. 1 is low, 5 is high.
Oh, so 5 is high.
Yeah.
Through you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add to that, is that some of the projects that are on this list were funded through ARPA funds, and they were not part of the process of vetting out with the rest of the capital projects. So some of these projects that were funded through ARPA went through the select board for approval, and they're on the sheet because all of the ARPA projects, most of the ARPA projects, we have more than $2+ million worth of projects that were funded through ARPA that the select board approved, but they're also capital projects.
Right.
So I'll be working in putting together a comprehensive list of capital improvements that occurred with the town with all funding sources, so that you'll be seeing that report shortly, and then I'll be preparing that for the capital committee as well.
Great, thank you.
And
welcome.
just so you know, the priorities, these came from the departments themselves.
Okay,
They scaled them.
that makes sense.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll just say again, the 1.3 million that's been allocated from free cash, the capital outlay voted 4-0 to approve. Are there any questions from the board on those items? All right, the next grouping, as Ms. Sheehan said, that there are ARPA items that were already approved by the select board, and, but they're all set. The ambulance, replacement ambulance, as the chair said, is funded by the ambulance fund account. So the biggest item is the $2.4 million, which would require the town to go out and bond. Would anyone like to, anybody have any questions on that item? No. Okay, and I do have, not that we need to show it, I've got a video if you want to see what a ladder truck actually does compared to how the firefighters are existing, how they go at it right now with regards to ladders. That's fine, about 4.5 minutes, but if you don't need it,
I think we should see it.
You can see it,
It is impressive, yeah.
as long as it's sunny and warm.
I think we should see it if we're actually, oh, sorry, I should, wait.
It's
Oh,
a joke
good.
between us.
It'd be more impressive if we can get it to play. Oh, look at this.
you want more sound, Beth?
No sound in case I'm talking.
Knowing and everything.
So I guess I would maybe ask the deputy chief if he wants to come up and walk us through the typical process. Is there a
Just,
mic?
yeah, share the microphone.
Absolutely.
You want to use,
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I think we all know each other. Eric Germain, Deputy Fire Chief. Sorry, trying to get rid of my gum here. So I guess first, we'd like to thank everyone for your support. And obviously, this was something that we try and do as far as, an educational type of atmosphere. We're a ground ladder fire department right now, which means we use ground ladders. So everything we carry on our truck, they're deployed by our personnel. And the largest or longest ladder that we have in a ground ladder scenario is 35 feet. So that's about what we can get. When you look at that photograph right there, the video, so that's our training building behind 99 Main Street, behind the headquarters fire station. And on the right side, you can see our engine company with the ladder rack down, and firefighters placing that ground ladder against the front of the building. We call that the A side of the building. Firefighters use that 35-foot ladder, and they're going up. You can hardly see the A-frame roof at the top of that building, but that's what they're after. And there's a chimney fire prop up there and a roof cut prop. So what they're trying to do is just show the difference between ground ladder ops. And if you look on that same side, that right side, the firefighters are ascending the 35-foot ground ladder with a roof ladder. So the intent is they're going to climb a ladder and carry another ladder at the same time. Two firefighters are going to carry a roof ladder, the 14-foot roof ladder, to the top of that building, and then stand on the ladder and push it up the roof, and there's hooks on it, and they're going to try and hook it over the peak of the roof so that it grabs onto something so that we can climb up over the 35-foot ladder and get onto the roof ladder. So obviously, there's a lot of moving parts there, and it's a pretty dangerous scenario, and that's what we've done for 100 years. On the left side of the building, you can see Plymouth was gracious enough to bring one of their aerial devices, and you can see firefighters now ascending that aerial device. It's a completely contained unit, obviously, anyone that has seen or been around a ladder truck. The operator drives the truck itself and operates and puts that ladder into position, and the firefighters wait until it's in position, and then they're able to ascend and work from a steady platform. So you can see how easily, there goes the chief there, you can see how easily they were able to ascend. They're up on the roof and they're ready to go to work. Our ground ladder team is still working. You can see they're still trying to push the roof ladder. That's the piece that's hanging off right now. And they're going to push that up and over the peak. So Plymouth is now working, and we're still in the process of deployment. You know, you take a scenario like this with snow and ice, which is obviously, that's usually the season that we're getting up on people's roofs. Jesse, when did we just do the last week?
Last Monday.
Last Monday, we had a chimney fire on Canterbury Drive, and short of the snow and ice, it was this exact scenario with, I would say, a 10 to 12 pitch roof. I think the chief brought some photos, I'm not sure. The chief brought some photos. It's a very dangerous scenario, and to sum it all up, it really comes down to firefighter safety. A lot of moving parts with the ground ladder scenario and a lot of room for error. So you can see, so they're going to transition from the 35-foot ground ladder. They're still trying to hook the ladder on the roof, and there he goes. We're lucky on the training building that the surface of the roof is painted with anti-skid material so that, you know, obviously we're safe when we train, but we don't have that luxury when we get on someone's roof. If there's snow and ice up there, that's what we have, and that's what we do. So, and you watch the transition. So that firefighter's going to have to transition to the left. He's going to come off the 35-foot ladder and get on that roof ladder and then start to work. And then obviously you have roof integrity, which can be an issue. Most of the time is an issue, especially when you're dealing with a building fire. So those firefighters that are on the roof right now, they're tied to the roof ladder that's up there. They don't step off it. They don't step on the roof. They stay on that ladder. So they're kind of tethered to a small work area unless we deploy another ladder. And with the ladder truck option, the operator can swing that any direction, extend, retract, and so they have a really good field of operation. They don't have to worry about, those types of issues. But again, I would sum it up. It's all about firefighter safety. And I know you've heard the chief talk about it for a long time. And the price, obviously the price is huge. But that's a product of every year. It just keeps getting more expensive, more expensive, more expensive. And right now, we're looking at, if we pulled the trigger today, you're looking at 48-month build time, so we won't even see a piece of equipment for 4 years. So it's a huge deal. It's really a huge deal.
Mr. Ryan?
What's the life of the vehicle, do you expect? How do you get out of it?
Sure. So our replacement plan for most of our fleet is 20 years. I know that a vehicle like this, the chief is committed, so we started a committee, we're going to begin tomorrow night, and that committee is going to start to build the spec. He has worked really hard with Pierce to get a spec, so that's how we got the budget. The budget number of, it's really $2,050,000, and then there's some escalation, and I think $250,000 to equip it. But the basic price of the ladder truck was built on a spec that he's worked with Pearson. Now it's gonna go to committee. The committee's gonna build that truck to fit Carver. And we're committed to, like we always are, we're committed to a ladder truck or an aerial device that can be used at least 70% of our calls. So it's not like it's gonna run on every single call, so it's not gonna have a lot of miles on it. But it will fit Carver, it will work in Carver, it will double as an engine company, although it's gonna have a ladder on it. We're gonna design it so that we can utilize it several different ways, so it's not just one of those unique pieces that, you know, is only available for 30% of the calls. We want 70% of the calls, that's what we're striving for. In saying that, the question that you asked, the life expectancy, so 20 years is what we strive for with all of our, you know, engine companies, breakers and things like that. I think the chief's committed to 25, 30 years on a ladder truck. And again, that type of equipment with the cost, in 25 or 30 years, if it's not prudent to replace it and rehab it, we will certainly, you know, explore those avenues.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions from the board?
What other kind of rescues can you use it for? So other than just on top of a home like that to get up high, can you use it for other situations too?
Absolutely. So, so a lot of people think of a ladder truck as merely like straight up and down and, you know, how many stories. You know, and in Carver, we have a moratorium on building height. We all know that. But it's not so much about up, it's about reach. So it's not height, it's reach. And you look at the plazas that we have, the Shaw's plazas, all those flat plaza roofs, you know, for us to get up on those roofs, it's the same ground ladder routine and all of that goes with it. Where an aerial device, you have a safe, you know, platform, a ladder to get up on and off the roof. So it's not just for, you know, chimney fires or things like building fires, venting roofs. It will be used in all those other, anytime we get on the roof of a building, which is pretty common, especially with commercial buildings with the rooftop units, the HVAC units. That's something that we do an awful lot. 160 North Main Street, you know, Jeff's been dealing with that recently. Tractor Supply, all those commercial buildings, Shaw's buildings. So it'll be utilized in those situations. And then one of the things I alluded to, so it'll have a pump and a tank on it. So it's technically in the fire service would call that a quint. So it will be available to act as an engine company. So it'll have hose on it. We'll be able to, even if it got in, maybe it came, we got the ladder truck in ahead of one of the engine companies inadvertently. That ladder truck can act just like an engine company, deploy hose, firefighters with air packs, go in and attack a fire and all those things. So it's gonna be multi-purpose. It's not just gonna be about ladder.
Good, thank you.
But that's its main function, obviously.
Okay.
I also want to mention that it can do like pond rescue out to what, 120 feet?
Yeah, so it'll be 100, we're gonna call it a 100-foot stick, but it'll be like 105 or 107. So, and it does have limitations, how low you can be and how much weight you can put on the tip, so tip loading and things like that, but absolutely. Decon is another big thing, you know, if we do go with whatever we go with, either a ladder or a towel which has the basket on it. Everybody knows the difference? Okay. So a lot of times like that basket, they come with decon nozzles underneath. So when we do our decon stuff after building fires, firefighters can get under there with their gear on. We can decon them with, you know, it's a soft water flow and things like that. So it's kind of endless. And we will adapt it. Like I said, we're committed. We'll adapt it to our community, to Carver, and again, it really comes down to safety.
Great.
Jess, you want to add anything?
We could have used it at Carver a few weeks ago, too.
Yes.
We could have used it a lot of different places.
200-year-old building that you don't think of as something that requires new technology, but that was a dangerous building to be on the roof of that time.
And just so you know, one of the demonstrations they showed us was that building, but then afterwards, they showed us if there was a fire in a pond or in a bog and someone needed to be rescued, they did show us how it would go out to rescue them. And they did have a bucket at the end.
Yeah.
I would have wanted the bucket. I asked the two firefighters, they said they liked the bucket.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It just seemed so much more secure to me when I was watching them from the top of the building.
Yeah.
And the hose controls are like, they're on the distal end of the trucks.
Right. They're on the,
So you're 100 feet away from the fire also, because the hose is at the proximal end of the ladder.
Well, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, you have to be, yes, you have to be, we'll design it
Okay,
to do it all.
Pat, you have any question?
No, just a couple of comments. You know, we've been talking about this type of piece of equipment for quite a number of years. And if you remember back when, up in North Carver, when Hillwood was going to build up in North Carver, they had $7 million of improvements for the town, and this fire truck was in there. And then Hillwood pulled out, and then everything went away. I'm a big, strong advocate for having this piece of equipment. And also, when you if we wait till we have the money, we're never gonna do it. But to strategically and conservatively bond for these types of things is the way in which it happens. Just like when we did the, improvements over in the library and into town hall. That was a bond. We waited for the money, it never would have been done. But just, again, strategically and conservatively bond, that's the way we get this equipment, and I'm right behind this.
Great, thank you.
And I don't want to, I know Chief Weston has spoken a lot about this truck. And no one likes to talk about firefighter injury. We're on borrowed, and again, it's not a scare tactic or any of those things, but when you look across the fire service, we're on borrowed time when you watch our operation and how we do that in the snow and rain and sleet and ladders and things like that. It's a miracle that one of our firefighters hasn't gotten injured yet. And God forbid someone does, I think, then I think we as a town and as will really feel the pain of, obviously, then we have someone injured, and then the monetary piece, and no one wants to think about those things, but I think that would be a bad day for all of us, I think.
All right. Mr. Townsend.
Just a comment. First of all, I agree with Mr. Mahar. The way the cost of these vehicles just keep going up and up. It's time we just take care of it and get this done. But as far as the video you folks put together, people around town have asked me about the truck and what the need for it was and why we need it. And I think that video really shows exactly what the difference is and why we need that, and to firefighter safety and all that. And I hope that somehow, if people have questions, maybe at town meeting or something, that we can show that video. Because I think when you see that video, there's no denying that we need this piece of apparatus.
So I think the video is Mr. Carter's video, correct?
Yes. I
Okay,
can send it to you.
so he owns the video. We'd be more than happy to show it to anyone who wants to see it, as long as he was okay with that.
That's fine.
But really, just like anything else, the chief's, he's the most accessible person you could ever imagine. So if you have people that have questions and you feel like you're trying to explain it and maybe they have more questions that please send them to us. Please send them to us. Even a phone call. But we'd rather them come in, because we can show them those things. And really,
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess why don't we take this and just to get some items behind us. Would anyone on the select board, actually, how would this work? There's a capital already voted, there's a finance committee want to vote first on this? The $1.3 million of, I guess, free cash spending for capital items.
I do have a question on one of the items.
Have a motion from someone in the finance committee? Okay, motion from Bill. Second from Barry.
Okay, before you have a final vote, Dan, did you say the question?
I did on the town-wide technologies. Was there a backup to what's involved with that one? Most of these make sense, but do you know what the 46,000?
I believe it's in the budget book. I thought it was servers and laptops.
It is, it's mostly laptop servers and monitors. And their plan is to use this 46,000 plus some money that's open from
Yeah.
prior articles.
So,
Firewalls.
so it's a bigger issue you're bringing into, but
Yeah.
let's hit it after we take the votes on the free cash component,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
So, finance committee, you on final vote?
We got a motion and a second for $1,300,000 for FY 2026 capital outlay.
We need a roll call.
Discussion?
We need a roll call vote because we've got, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. McRae, do you have any questions on anything you're seeing on the capital list?
It's not.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Audio.
Can't hear
I
you.
think you might be muted.
Is that us? It's us off, muted.
I won't steal it.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Maybe we can't.
No, that's the microphone, not the speaker, that you just undid.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Maybe he's muted on his end.
is he muted on his end?
See how there's an X beside it though, so it's not right. There's an X right there. See that X, there's something going on.
Oh, is that the monitor?
Although, while we're in your
No.
budget book, there is a picture of the,
Tony, can you hear us
one of
now?
the ladders. I mean, I think that's pretty telling also.
Yeah.
He can hear us, but he can't talk.
He can hear us.
All right, there you go. We got the thumbs up.
All right.
Can, does anyone have his number? Maybe you can call him on your iPhone and just leave it up? No?
No?
It's right down on a piece of paper. Tony, what's your number?
Yeah.
I don't think I just emailed.
It's not the, I know it's the laptop because he's plugged in. It's not our screen this time.
Oh, do you know what I think it is? There's a little button I pressed.
Jackie's got it.
Go fix it, Jackie, will you?
May, I know. Did you press this?
I gotta do the 4 million off the million.
Almost.
Yeah. Hold on, what about the 100 and the
Look at here.
I had the same issue today.
Is that usually an HDMI cable to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta tell it to send the audio over HDMI.
Hey, Jim.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, I guess we're gonna have to keep moving along. So I guess you've got a quorum.
We've got, I'm gonna redo the motion.
Okay,
I'm gonna withdraw the original one, we gave the wrong figure, I guess. So we want a motion to approve, 4,050,000.
we've got a conflict now because capital outlay voted the 4,150,000. So can anyone tell us what the $100,000 difference is?
It was the ARPA bid.
It was the ARPA money.
It was the ARPA monies.
Yeah.
But the ARPA money is not included in the free cash number.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as we look at the capital projects for the FY '26, we have $4,050,000 worth of projects that we're approving. The funding source is 1.3 from
Okay.
free cash, and then you have the receipts from the ambulance, and then you have the authorization. The ARPA projects have already been approved by the select board
Okay.
in the past and have already,
Got it.
have no vote.
So let's just vote on the free cash allocation first for 1.3 million.
Okay, then that goes back to. Motion stands.
Okay,
So let's start all over again. So, can we have a motion to approve the 1.3 million in free cash for the, FY 2026 capital outlay? So moved. Okay, we got a motion?
Second.
We got a second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
all right.
I believe you need a roll call because it's.
Roll call vote because we're on.
Roll call vote. Is he there still?
Somewhere.
Barry Strusky, aye.
Pat Maha, aye. Bill Cullen,
Elizabeth Salger, aye.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the 1.3 million.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second, roll call vote.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
John Carter says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Great, thank you. As the finance director mentioned, the opera funds have already been voted on. Would anyone like, I guess, Finance Committee first, make a vote on the $2.4 million bond for the ladder tower apparatus?
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the $2.4 million bond for the ladder tower apparatus?
I'll take that.
Okay, we got a motion? We get a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote. Philip DeColo, aye.
Barry Struski, aye.
Pat Maher, aye.
Bill Bellamy, aye.
Elizabeth Salker, aye.
Great.
Motion to approve the $2.4 million bond authorization.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call vote.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
John Carter says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
That's it. And the last item, the ambulance, funded from ambulance fees. Finance Committee?
Okay, we've got, that's the 350, right?
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the $350,000 for, out of the ambulance, account, ambulance fees for a new ambulance, out of the, dealing with the FY 2026 capital outlay.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion, second? Second, okay, and then any other further discussion? Roll call vote. Philip DeColo, aye.
Barry Struski, aye.
Pat Maher, aye.
Bill Bellamy, aye.
Elizabeth Salker, aye.
Motion to approve the $350,000 ambulance replacement.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call vote.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
John Carter says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Thank you so much. The capital is done. Now, getting back to something that the capital outlay chair mentioned about prior ATM warrant articles, did you want to?
Sure, so we've gone through a lot of articles, just so you guys know, of our last few meetings. We've gone through the ones from that's left for 2025, 24, and prior years. We are going to meet again, just so everyone is aware, in May. Give some departments more time to spend, and then at that point, we will meet with Karen to see what we're going to close down. But there are open articles that go back, I believe, to 2016, might have been the oldest that we saw. IT does have quite a few older articles, however, they are planning to spend them between fiscal year 25 and 26. Those are made up of, we do have a list, and I'm sure I have it somewhere with me. They're looking to buy a lot of iPads, desktops, and monitors, and that's gonna outfit mostly the police station. Oh, then what they're also looking to buy is computer servers. They're looking for 2 servers at the fire department. Those are worth $20,000. 5 servers at the police station, those are $60,000, and 2 servers at town hall for $20,000. So total servers are $100,000. They also need to replace the firewall, which will in total cost $85,000. That's going to be 3 replacements at fire, 2 replacements at police. They're adding a new firewall for the town, including EMS, Council on Aging, and Library. The desktops slash laptops, it sounds like it was both when we actually looked at them. They need 65 units of the police department, and they need 3 units at the Council on Aging. And each one's about, for the total outfit, about $3,000. And
So-
that's
okay.
$294,000 total IT.
So one of the issues we came across in the past was these old ATM articles still sitting out there. Now, back in 2018, the town meeting approved $199,000 for town-wide IT. Of that, only $80,000 has been spent in 7 years. So the big question is why? So there's one argument that said, we don't care why it wasn't spent for the purpose that it needed to. Bring it back in, it would then get freed up in the following year via free cash. But I'm told now that the IT director has put out purchase orders for these, which we've asked for copies of. Seeing that, does he already have committed funds to some of these projects going forward? So to take that money away could be obviously a problem. But there's a fundamental problem with the fact that this thing sat out there for 7 years.
Mr. Chairman?
Townsend.
I guess a couple of questions. First of all, you referenced the 2018 town meeting article. Was it just vague IT funding? It didn't specify?
I believe there was, I think the capital outlay chair saw something on, you looked it online, it gave like a couple of summary items, but it wasn't a detail of 199,000.
Yeah, according to this, it just says townwide tech upgrades.
Okay. Well, okay. And I guess my other question would be, just someone may have missed it in the past, but I know this board in the past has asked, and it was prior to you, Mr. Cannon, but we had asked the town administrator to go through and identify town meeting articles that weren't, were still out there, that hadn't been completed, and bring that money back to be reallocated. And I guess you referenced there were a few of them, but it sounds like we've missed a few.
So so I did go back, believe it or not, since Friday, to old meeting minutes and looked at them. And some of these articles, we've actually talked about the last 3 years in a row, but they're still open, and I believe there were requests from the departments to keep them open. Many have closed, not just, there's some still open.
And I guess my only thought on this particular article is that, if it just referenced townwide IT, that's one thing. But if it got more specific and specified what we were supposed to be spending that money on, we might want to consider a new article to if we're going to reallocate that money.
So we did get a list last night of all the replacements for the computers, for all 65, and exactly where they're located and which computer they're replacing. So I do know there were like 63 actual replacements and 2 reserves in case someone broke. So we do have that this year, but it's the first year. This is it if you want to see it.
Okay.
So one of the big issues we kept coming back with is, sorry, Mr. Gannon.
Oh, I don't interrupt.
What can physically be done? There's a list of $297,000 worth of capital items that he's asking for. And the question is, with a one-man department, maybe an intern, maybe an outside consulting firm once in a while, what can be done in one fiscal year? And let's do that. And then let's put another request in the following year. Because the idea is to tell taxpayers, we're going to repurpose this, but we want you to know why. And this is what we want to do. I just don't know what that number might be, which can be done in a year. Mr. Gannon.
If I could, just so the board is aware, I think very similar to the town administrator and the finance director, there's been turnover in the IT department. We also had a separation between the school and the town on the IT side. I think that really led to these articles not being spent properly. I don't know why they weren't found by other, previous finance directors or town administrators. But I also think, I'll tell you now, I'm a big believer, I think I spoke about this last year, coming into the town of Carver, of closing out these old articles, letting it go to free cash, and then, let's spend that money now. I think it's the nature of the things that he wants to buy, one being the firewall. And I can tell you right now, I am involved in a breach of security from the town of Bourne. I haven't worked there in 3 years. I just got my letter in the mail. And then also the servers. And what he said with the servers is that they are at the end of life and they will no longer be supported. And, and again, when we're talking about the police station and the fire department, it makes me very nervous. So this is the one case where I really want to advocate to keep these articles open and let him do this work. Again, we do have a new IT director, and let him go to work on it.
And just to you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Carter's point, which I think was an excellent one, I have no issue with that, and I think computer security is very important. I don't think we should have an article that just hangs out there for 4 or 5 years. I think we should approve an amount of money that the IT director can work with in this fiscal year, and then, and then approve money in subsequent years. I don't think it makes any sense to just
I agree, Mr. Townsend. I'll tell you now, I'll be happy to have monthly meetings with the IT director to follow up and make sure these things I informed him today.
Mr. Ryan?
So relative to that, could we just get a plan that shows what's being replaced in a timeline?
Sure.
With that plan that says this is what I'm going to do, and here's the funds, here's where all the money's coming from, and here's what we're going to update, and here's the timeline for when it's going to get done. And maybe that'll help us to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's my understanding that the IT director we have now is really the first sort of professional IT director we've had.
Well, it's my understanding that the IT director came over from the school, and I believe he is a professional.
Yeah.
But at the town
But
side,
no,
yes.
no, that's what I mean. I think he he's only recently been
Correct.
here. So, I mean, he's probably just seeing this as, I would imagine he's just seeing this as well, because he's kind of a pro. So,
And I know he was aware of one of the articles, and he told me today, he was unaware of the other articles even out there. So, just hadn't been brought to his attention either,
yeah,
but.
yeah.
Okay, so,
Again, we'll be happy to put together a timeline.
In the plan.
get this
so
moving
just so
forward.
I'm clear, and I'll defer to Mr. Gannon and Finance Director Karen Prevail, that we've got 3 items that we talked to the department heads on that we would, I don't know if we need a vote, but I just want to get it out there in the minutes so that we're not looking at these things 3 years from now and they're still sitting out there. There's an item that we've talked to O&M about that was done back that was put out there in 2020, has $64,000 left for field maintenance and operations, but he says he's got that money funded in his operating budget. So it really shouldn't be in capital anyways, it shouldn't be an ATM article, it should have been maintenance anyways. So we're looking to bring that back into free cash next year. We've got a human resource training startup that was in 2015 that was sitting out there as an ATM article. We're looking to bring that money back in. And we've got, I think it's a small balance on the town hall exterior siding for $1,200. So in total, it's about $95,000 that we'll be bringing in to put into next year's free cash. So we're doing something right now, but we need a plan from IT before we probably make any changes there. All right.
Okay.
So I think, is that all capital, all set? So I'll defer to the capital committee if they wanted to adjourn their meeting.
Want to make a motion for adjournment?
7:21.
7:21.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and second to adjourn the capital outlay committee meeting tonight, March 4th at 7:21. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 They need a roll call vote, or do they?
Oh,
You gotta do a roll call vote.
Oh,
I guess we will do, be on the safe side, roll call.
Okay. Elizabeth Tugger, aye.
Oh, Jen Cullen, aye. Becky Lee, aye.
John got it right.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the budget. So I guess I would defer to maybe the finance committee. Did you want to, I know you've met with a lot of department heads. Well, actually, before we go and spend expenses, did you, typically you don't, at least that I did when I was on the committee. Have you been through all the revenue components that's currently being budgeted? The revenue component that we have forecasted for 2026. Did you have any discussions on that?
Just when Karen was here.
Okay, because I didn't when I was on the finance committee. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that first, if we could. All right. Karen, just wanted to kind of high level, don't want to go into every single line item unless somebody has questions with regards to the revenue for this year that you're forecasting.
Yes.
I have one major question, but I'll defer to anybody else if they want to discuss it. Okay. I'm not sure if everybody has this. There's this revenue schedule that this schedule that you sent over, right?
The summary.
Yeah, the summary. No, I guess it's in the summary. I'm not sure if the other board members have this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the revenue projection was a 10-year revenue plan, a 5 to 10-year revenue plan that was presented to the Finance Committee and the Select Board in November of 24, excuse me. And the revenue that you have in your folder represents the update from that meeting. The meeting that the spreadsheet that John's looking at is a detail listing all of the fines, all of our local receipts from every single department. For this meeting, I provided a summary page, our tax revenue with our levy and what was amended, what we received for what we have as a projection for local receipts and for state aid. I did not provide a detail sheet that was provided at the meeting in November.
Okay, so I'm just looking at an issue of that on the tax levy roll forward going from, that you presented, I'm not sure what page it is, I think it's page 3 of this file, of this
I
detailed
was
schedule.
gonna say, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I think this sheet only went to UI and the finance director. It did not go to the entire board. Do you want us to make copies of it right now, and we can run it off the copy machine? Mr. Townsend has it?
Is that this?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Was that passed out tonight?
No, I just printed it because I had a copy too.
Well, we can make
I can
extra
print.
copies.
Want me to just send it?
sure,
You wanna just run it off? Yeah.
yeah.
How many? Yeah, you can.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Emails on the back. Only take a minute, sorry.
Okay. So, I guess conceptually, just to keep it rolling. This isn't really a detail about, hey, what's in this? This is more of a calculation. When you have the roll forward going through them from the tax levy, and you're taking the prior year revenue and applying it to 2.5, it looks like in '25, comparing to the recap that you did in '25, it seems to have picked up about $825,000.
Yeah, so what happens is that in the summer, the Board of the Board of Assessors will provide the Department of Revenue with property tax, any type of new growth, and they do a new growth evaluation. So they do original new growth projection, and that's just part of the levy that's within there. And then they have an amended new growth. So in the summer, the Department of Revenue provided an amended new growth. So you usually have your new growth figure, but they amended it and they increased the new growth, so that new growth amended then increases your tax levy. Once you have your tax levy based off of the prior year amended new growth, these are the revenue figures that we have to use. So our tax levy went up by the amended new growth, which was in addition to the regular new growth. And then from that, you're then looking at adding your 2.5% and then your new growth for the next fiscal year. And then that presents your tax levy. And then you have your debt exclusion, which then states the allowable tax amount that we would set for the taxes.
Okay, so I'm just noticing, absolutely correct. I'm noticing that between '24 and '25, the levy went up $1.2 million, but from '25 to, I guess, revised '25, it's $2.2 million. It just seemed like quite a big jump, and that's when I looked at the balance rolling forward, how that got increased by $825,000.
So the tax levy projections that we put together, it's a formula, and it's done through the Department of Revenue. The levy and tax levy is not something that I can determine. All I can do, the only difference in what you're seeing based on what we had as projection back in the summer is that they did an evaluation and they did an amendment to new growth, and you wouldn't have seen that before. And that's why you're seeing that jump from the original FY25 just had the new growth, and then they had amended new growth that occurred over the summer into the fall that increased our tax levy. And that's why for the FY26 projected revenue, you're seeing that higher increase
Bigger
than you
jump.
saw
That's
in the
my
summer.
question, was
And
the
that was
bigger
due
jump.
to the amended new growth. So one thing that I don't project is amended new growth. That's just something that I have to wait for the DOR because I don't want to over-project what we're going to anticipate receiving. So for the FY26 budget, I have a projected new growth number in there of 750, and that is what I was working with, just for the assessor in terms of what he feels that new growth is going to be. It could be higher, but I won't know that until DR does the new certification, which is in the next fall.
Great. Sorry to go off tangent. Anybody else have any questions, or?
On the excluded debt, number changed. I think you mentioned to me before the meeting why, but then I did have another question about that too. So maybe you want to go over what's going on with the excluded debt, why
Yes.
it's different.
So with the excluded debt, what happens that, several years ago, the town voted to pay for the middle school. And they wanted to cover that through through taxes. And so it was voted that the taxpayers agreed to pay additional taxes, which includes your debt service. So you're paying your principal and your interest payments for the debt service of the middle school for what was bonded years ago, and I know that debt is going to drop off in 1942. When that project was bonded, we had a premium. And so that premium is amortized over the length of the issue, which is, more than 42, going out to 2042. And so the amount of taxes, which is the debt service payments, the principal and interest, is reduced, one, by the premium. So when you look at the budget and you look at the excluded debt within the budget, you're going to see the interest and principal payments that come to $1.19 million and some change. And so that's what the taxpayers would have had to pay, the principal and interest. But that number is reduced, one, by the premium. The premium is around, I want to say around 60, for this year, it was around $57,000. And then we also, this year, we utilized $100,000 from the solar meter, net metering money to reduce what the taxpayers have to pay. So that's why you're seeing the decrease to the 1 million. If you look at every fiscal year, every prior year, the debt service payments that the taxpayers have been paying has been reduced by $100,000 over the last 3 or 4 years. I printed all of the DE1, and I can provide those reports to you from DOR that shows that the taxpayers did receive a discount in the principal and interest payments that they were entitled to pay due to the reductions that we had in the warrant. I hope that I hope you can understand what I'm saying. If not, sometimes having a visual may be helpful. Does that answer your question?
It doesn't. So I think, was it last year, was it 1.131098? Was that what we paid last year in the?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that
so-
was reduced with the premium as well.
So it would have been 1.2 million, you're saying? We had taken it down by 100,000?
So,
We talked about this earlier, Gil, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the typical debt service on the school building is $1,190,000. That's the 1.2 million that is every single year.
Right, and we're not allowed to exclude all of it 100%. There's only a percentage of the total that we can exclude?
we pay the entire debt service payment that the taxpayers would be paying is a 1.19 million over the next somewhat 20 years. What you see in your tax levy is a smaller amount than the 1.1. The reason you see that is because DOR allows us to amortize that and reduce it by a premium. So what happened was when this bond issue occurred, there was a premium. And what a premium is that if a company is bonding money, it's like they're giving additional money, so they get selected for, to be able to provide the money to the town. And then that premium, they amortized it over the length of the debts that we're paying the debt. So what the Department of Revenue does is they reduce what the taxpayers have to pay by that premium. That's why, and then we're reducing it again by the 100,000 that was requested in the warrant.
So I'll have to get a copy of I just want to see the yearly payments. I do remember when George was here that you can't take 100% of the debt exclusion, or the amount of there was some formula, there was a part of it that you couldn't. And also the other practice that we were doing with the town, in the past, we were told is if there was an extra $100,000, we would pay it on the principal, not reduce it. So my second question to that is, why are we not just using the $100,000 to pay down the principal instead to reduce it over time versus reducing the amount that we're actually paying?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's two components to that. So and I spoke to Hilltop and I did research on this, the bonds that were issued based off of the official statement doesn't allow prepayment on the principal. Okay. So you cannot pay down a principal like you would a mortgage payment, which would then change your whole amortization, and then your interest payments would be less every year. And so the only savings that you have is the amount that the taxpayers would be paying on the debt service. if the town wanted to pay down on the principal, then after, I believe it's 10 to 11 years that you've been paying, I believe it in 2027, you'd have to call the bonds back and then reissue them with the understanding that allows you to then make prepayments. So I'd have to look into what that cost would be, because there's a cost if you call back a bond issue, but that can happen after the 11 years, so I can always talk to Hilltop to find out if the town wanted to call back the bonds to be able to pay down on the principal, what that would cost.
Okay. And I guess the last question around that is if we drop it by $100,000 this year, can we go back up next year? Is it like now that we've dropped it by 100, it's a debt exclusion, so if you take 100 off this year, do you now have to do this forever, or can it go back up to the full amount next
No,
year?
you don't know if we are using other revenue, solar net metering to cover that 100,000. We did not do that in FY '25. So what the taxpayers are paying this fiscal year is just reduced. It's just reduced by the premium. So it's no, to answer your question, no, it's not something you have to do every year, but it's something that the town in the past has done, and it has happened, and I've gone back and I have all the reports showing that they did receive this break, but it's not something you have to do every year.
All right, thank
And
you.
just to follow up, when we built the elementary school, we committed to the taxpayers in order to do the debt exclusion, that we would dedicate $100,000 of solar money towards it.
Okay.
So it just didn't go, I thought the same way, reduced principal, but instead it was reducing the tax by
I see.
taxpayers.
All right, thank you.
All right, so that's enough, I guess that's enough revenues. Anybody else have any revenue questions? Okay. Now I guess I turn it over to the Finance Committee, Pat. I'm not sure how you want to handle this. Do you want to go through departments? And
Well, I'm not sure what you're looking for, John. What we did as a committee is, we started off the cycle by meeting with the town administrator and finance director. And we got a sense of, where we are with things and so forth. And that was a very productive meeting. And then,
Oh, can we slide that one over?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good, Pat.
okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so, like I said, we had running a kind of a compressed schedule, and we met with the finance director and the town administrator first, had a very informative, productive meeting, and then our next several meetings were meeting with all department heads, and we finished that up last night. And our sense around this time in doing that is that the budget numbers were coming in or pretty much solidified. We had the town school split. And so by the time that we had department heads coming in, our sense was, town knew what its budget was, and those town department heads had already had their budgets vetted at least twice, and maybe more. So we were talking about what their priorities were, how they were going to handle things and so forth, and we had some very good conversations with the department heads. And there was pretty much agreement and in what the department heads wanted to do going forward. So that's about what we did.
Okay. I guess I'll open this up to the board. What I'd like to do is we have this summary sheet that you're seeing that's in our book, right? And maybe go back to and I think we'll skip over a lot of this stuff. Maybe go back to the old school days, which we used to do. We'd go over the budget line item and we'd look at a department and say, hold if somebody had a question. But if not, just bypass it.
And my question is, so we did receive an update that, so you have the department head request and you have the town administrator recommendation. So what was the final outcome of all of that with the finance committee? Is the town administrator's recommendation, is that what they're going with, or is there changes to that?
No, they're going with their town administrator's
Right, yeah.
recommendations. That's
Okay.
the balanced budget that
All
we
right.
agreed to.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, so since we have everybody here that could answer any questions we might have, I'm just looking at this master sheet. I would assume nobody has any questions on the town moderator, $250?
What sheet are you looking at?
What sheet are you looking
You
at?
may not have a summary?
This is the summary
A
sheet of the
one-page
budget book.
summary?
It's in the budget. I just printed out mine bigger because I,
The one that we just got?
Yes,
Yeah, it
excuse me,
should
through
be
you,
here.
Mr. Chair. Everyone should have, and it says FY '26 Budget Summary Comparison, updated 3/4/2025. It shows the FY '25 budget and the FY '26 request, the FY '26 Town Administrator balanced budget, and it shows the increases and decreases. If you don't see a copy, I provided some.
This one was just dated 3/4, so
Yeah.
unless you got it today.
Yeah, I just put it in my book.
I have another copy.
I gotta find it. There it is, right here.
He's got
Mr.
it.
Chair.
You know I have it.
Stevens,
So, I just wanted to clarify, so this FY '26 budget has been approved by the town administrator, is that,
just been presented as a balanced budget by the town administrator.
right, got it, okay, thank you.
That's correct, right? Correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, so, next, Town Administrator Division, I guess, does anybody have any questions or concerns with it?
The 507, 135.
The 507, 134, yep.
And what was pulled, it's a big change from the 25 of 978, 913. Was it just something that was moved to a different category?
I'll leave that to the finance director.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did move municipal insurance into the benefit section, because it should be under benefits, so that's why you're seeing that larger reduction. And, I mean, if you're looking at your individual sheets, the town administrator also decreased his budget around $29,000 for town hall additional hours. So, as you go through the budget, you're going to see a lot of, some of the budgets, departments have reduced their budgets just because we had a chance to really walk through and spend time to see what their actual needs are to be able to provide services to the residents.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I mean, I don't see anything out here that is out of the ordinary. Well, on the payroll schedules, I think I brought this up in some emails, that I'd like to see the actual movement from prior year to current year with all the items that are affected. For instance, contractual obligations, stipends, all the buckets, where here we're just showing COLA. I think contractual obligations are embedded in the number. So we don't need for tonight, but for Tom, I guess I'd like to see a revised schedule that takes us from the 25 budget to the 26 budget for salary increases.
Okay, sure, I can definitely provide that. I'll just add a column. This year, I put together a very comprehensive payroll sheet working with our payroll coordinator, but I went through every PAF form, which is a form showing every employee's hourly salary, how many hours they work, the number of stipends they receive. As you look at your budget and you look at the salary pages, you'll see a column showing all the stipends that each individual employee receives. So what I can do is I do have a column that will show what their rate was from the previous year. The salary pages in the past have been were put together by the department head. This year, I didn't have the department heads put together the salary. The salary pages were pages that I put together personally, went through everyone. All of the salary pages, we have some union contracts that are still under negotiation that haven't cleared. The clerical union, the O&M, and I believe the police. So the projections that I have in these budgets include a 2% COLA plus the step increase of 2%. And I believe that's the same for O&M. In some communities, you could always keep the original salary for the employee, if contracts haven't been settled, and then within your benefit line, you can just have a line for contract negotiation increases. And then once they actually have been approved, you'll go back and you do journal entries. You would do a transfer. You meet with the select board and do a transfer into the different departments. But the salary numbers that you see within the budget include a 2% COLA, and then the step increase, depending on the union. If you're part of the personnel code, it was just a 2%.
And do you know what the total COLA was, dollar value-wise, in this budget? If
I
not, you
have-
can get it back to me.
I can get that for you.
All right.
That's a question,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. Do we have and this may have already come out, and I didn't see it, but a position control that tells us how many FTEs we have actually working this year, how many we had last year, the year before, so we can see the increase of the staffing?
Yes, we do. I can get that sheet for you.
Okay.
I know that we have it through the select, we've been working with the select board and working with the payroll coordinator to make sure that we have some of these sheets that didn't exist in the past. One thing that we spent a lot of time on over the fall was working on, compensated absences. This is something that the auditors were looking for, is what are our liabilities if everybody were to leave? What numbers do we have on the book? So that's something that I'm proud to say that we were able to provide to the auditors, and if that's information that you'd like to see, we can present that as well, but.
Well, I just think of.
Yes, we do have, and that will be part of with the position list, FTE, part-time, we can get that in that, we can include that in the warrant, if you like. I believe
Yeah.
it may be in there, I'm not sure, I have to check with Elaine. It's not.
No, I just think
Okay.
it's something we've been asking for a few years now.
I can provide that for you for this year.
Thank you.
Great. No. Utilities are utilities. Anybody have any question on utilities? No? Oh,
Do we see any change in utilities based on what we've paid to date? Because it seems like, gasoline seems like it's been stable, but it seems like the natural gas is going up and things. So how are we with the budget? We're level funding
Yeah.
it basically from the year before. So my question is that fine or should it go up a little bit?
So right now for utilities, we didn't see, working with the departments, they presented a service level budget, meaning, if there's any inflation that they included that, there weren't any changes based off what the department head thought they needed for this. If at any given point in time, prices go up. I'm going to be meeting with departments for the third quarter, and so that if there are any changes and we feel that there's additional money, we will be presenting that to the Finance Committee with an overview of
right.
what the departments feel they're going to need for the rest of the fiscal year, and, but right now, there were no additions.
So we're voting on locking in a level fund from last year. That was my.
Level service.
It's level funded to the utility.
service.
Okay.
This one happens to be level funded also, though.
level funded,
I do think with
numerically.
the utilities, you can get fooled, I can tell you right now. For this previous winter, with the winter we're in right now,
Yeah.
fairly typical, I would say, weather-wise, and temperature-wise. The previous two, very mild, right?
Right.
So, it's easy to get fooled because the prices you see here may not truly reflect what a typical winter is. I think gasoline, the price of gasoline has stabilized, so hopefully that's settled down, maybe even last year or the year before.
Yeah.
You get close to $4 a gallon, right? That's,
Right. So
And
my
hit your
question
value.
is, did we look at the percentage we've paid to date versus what we expected? Are we like over, under, Should we be adding a little bit more to utilities because we expect it's going to be higher going into next
if
year?
you do look at the detail sheet, there's the existing, to be, spent in year to date,
Okay.
right?
So it looks like,
So, like you can see, like this year, electric's way down right now, right?
It is.
Yeah, I know, I know, that's what I mean. You sometimes you just can't predict it.
yeah, if you assume that's going to be double, electric's going to be
Yeah,
like
me too.
72, it's lower than,
I agree.
And, just one thing that we also did is, we looked at, prior actuals to looking at what some of the increases are. So we felt like there was enough money in the budget to cover if there were some increases, but if, whatever the needs are, we can always make adjustments.
Okay.
All right, utilities, finance committee, looks like pretty standard. The only thing that, I think, Karen, you brought this up once before, and I think Mr. Townsend has as well, is should we look at, the finance committee used to get, that money used to get drawn down pretty quickly. And now it just seems to sit because we're managing costs, and then it gets closed out at the end of the year into
Free cash.
items. So should we look at maybe next year reserve, making it a reserve balance, so it stays at the 175, then if you spend 25 of it, you only refund 25 the following year? I think you had brought that up when you first came on board.
Having it in the budget, it's more available. If you put it into a reserve fund, then you have to vote to have it taken out. But if you feel, if we, over the next, year or so, if you feel that we're not going to need $175,000, to come up for unforeseen areas of department spending, then that's absolutely something that, through the chair of the finance committee, if you want to reduce, or through the select board, that's definitely something you can do. But we're really, really trying to work with departments and, make sure that we have enough funding in the budget so that we don't have to come to the finance committee. But it's just like an emergency fund if something were to come up.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out that this finance committee number was just recently increased, either last year or the year before, I don't recall. So
in the last couple of
it may
years,
be
yeah.
that if we don't need it, we could roll it back to what it was previously and
Well, I think
reallocate that funding,
I think
whatever.
it was 150, and for a few years, we pretty much did that. And then,
175.
I think a lot of the transfers like legal.
I think it was the end of the year transfers,
Yeah.
though, that exhausted
but
that.
last year, or, let's see, last year, it was really minimal, and so far this year it is too, so.
Something we could look at going
We
forward.
just kept the same number, but we'll get through this year and we'll look at it again. And maybe it doesn't have to be 175, but again, it's the unforeseen that can come back and haunt you.
Right, that's right.
And we have a lot of internal controls,
Well, I was
sorry.
going to say, this is truly supposed to be an emergency fund, which is why it is good if it's in with the finance committee. It just makes it a process a lot easier if you actually need the funding for an emergency. And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I think through better budgeting, hopefully, you do see this, be closer to zero year after year. And we're really, we're only budgeting for a true emergency.
Sure. I just wanted to point out where this is your first full year here, that it was just recently changed, in case you weren't
Yeah.
aware.
All right, Finance Committee, then Finance and Accounting. Obviously, we've got a big jump there. I don't know if Karen, you want to talk about your additional headcount?
Yes, so for my budget, I requested $95,000, and then this is to hire an accountant for my department. My department currently have 2 part-time staff, and the amount of work that we need to do, internal controls that need to be set, a lot of the work that has come up on our audit within our management letter, we just don't have enough people to do the work. And so I'm requesting an additional staff with an accounting background that can help put together a lot of the reports that's going to help the town manage the finances, because the amount of work, it's just, it's too much for one person.
And I think one of the things that I remember prior meetings you'd mentioned with Vadar, that Vadar, I don't know if you used SoftWrite before, was something that has a lot of checks and balances where people have to like put in a voucher, check a voucher, release a voucher, all these things. So you got a lot more transactional, manual transactions that have to happen with staff, maybe than you had before.
That's correct. I mean, with Vadar, it's a system that will provide the information that you need, but the minor steps that you have to go through to extract it, it's a lot. Use a lot of paper. Some of my goals for the town is to really work on automation. There's a lot of reports and there's a lot of information and a lot of data that we could utilize as we're looking at our projections, as we're doing, even like health insurance evaluations. And you need staff to be able to do that. There's a lot of accounting, in terms of our balance sheet, in terms of Schedule A. In the past, some of this work has been outsourced or it just wasn't done. So I think as I've had a chance over the last 11 months, I've been able to do a really good evaluation on what I feel like the needs are for the town. And I want to make sure that a lot of this stuff is done and it's just not kind of pushed aside because you don't have the staff to do it. And there's a lot of areas within the financial statement that I'd like to address. I really strongly believe that some of the changes that we make, we're right now at a AA, bond status. I think we can be AAA, but some of those things would be require coming up with a debt service model. having our budget online, like an open checkbook, so people could go online and they can see, they can see the revenue at any given point. They can see our expenditures. We don't have to outsource work to outside, consultants, and everything could, we have the training, we have the talent within the town. I think it will save us a lot of time, money. In terms of Vadar, we're also looking at, different options because, we still we have the school that's using software. So we really need to figure out what software system is going to be the most efficient for the town. And I want to make sure that that process isn't just me making the decision, but it is a collaborative effort with everybody, even the users, because a lot of the end users in the departments with invoicing, there are a lot of steps. But then there are a lot of areas in Vadar that we don't know about. I mean, the amount of training that occurred last summer when they transferred to Vadar, and there's things that I'm learning about Vadar now too. They're making some upgrades. I know that we have a training class coming up in the next month because they're now going to be using Vadar to integrate with Hoppers, and so there's a lot of there's tools I've found out that that are utilized.
Okay, do you have a question?
I have a question, and I'm not saying we don't need an accountant, because I'm sure we do, but what is our position justification when we go out to bring in new positions? So we're increasing our FTE or our headcount, but how do we justify, other than Glenn, that we do want to increase our salaries, because those have long impacts on the town's expenses? Process for that?
I'll have to look into that, and I can get back to you. I can be able to provide you with an answer to that.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to?
Scanner?
So maybe on two parts. One being the account that request that's in front of us today. One thing that I've come in here, my job isn't just to look at the town administrator's department or even work with the select board. It's a town-wide analysis. And I'll tell you right now, I've heard about the financing and even the budgeting process during my interview process before I came to work here. I view it as being the #1 need of this town. And there are other staff requests in here you'll see that are not recommended in my budget moving forward. To accommodate this, we made cuts also in expenses across the board. We were diligent about it, talked to the department heads about it, and, made cuts in my own department to accommodate this. I truly believe that this is the #1 need for the town. The town-wide assessment, I'll tell you, I think we're in a whole different world than I've seen in my career. There is more competition now for staff members than I've ever seen. So those compensation plans to make sure we're competitive is what, you want to make sure you always are. And I always, whenever I walk into a town, I always see if staff is leaving. Because that's a sign, if they're going somewhere for more money, you want to know that, because you don't want to be the town where staff is just turning over all the time. You become the training ground, and, you never really kind of get ahead because all you're ever doing is training staff. So that's one of the reasons, one of the things we'd look at, probably that comprehensive plan, a compensation plan to make sure we're being competitive. And I know Elaine and I do this constantly. We look at the MMA website, we look who's being advertised in what positions and how much they're paying. And we're constantly asking, to make sure that we're in line with what we're seeing.
And I'm sure that we need the position, I'm just curious, how does the town justify who gets the position? Do you have a form like you do capital? Is there a committee that meets and you say, yes, we need it here, or we need it here?
I guess.
That's what I'm wondering, is how do you justify?
Well, in this case, I think it's the year of experience from both the select board and the finance committee and the concerns that I've heard about what's happening here in the town on the financial end. So, taking that into consideration, knowing what we've been through, knowing the struggles that Karen sees right now. I can tell you, Karen has brought in probably more consultants than we've had in previous years in the finance. And Karen, I don't know if you knew it before, but you have to manage the consultants too. And that's a very time-consuming process. As a matter of fact, sometimes I think it's more time-consuming to manage the consultants, certainly than your own staff, who you know what to expect from them, what you can get out of them, what they're good at, what they're not good at. So that, again, that's part of the process, so.
Okay.
Could I just add one thing to that? It seems to me when you hire consultants, consultants don't work the way you want them to work. They don't know the Carver way. They don't know what way a department operates. So when you have an employee, they work the way you want them to work. They know what you expect of them and they answer you. Consultants are just out there, and you can't control
They will
them.
do exactly what you ask them to
That's
do.
right.
And again, you still have to check their work,
But, an employee, I expect an employee, if they see something wrong, they bring it to my attention, right? They don't just walk past, that's not in my contract, I expect them to say, Glenn, this needs attention. I think it is a whole different world.
Okay. I think, Pat, you had a question?
Well, just a comment, because I heard one of my favorite words, Vadar. And I'm going to get into my favorite subject, the town financial system, which, again, I don't let a meeting go by without taking the opportunity. But at the same time, we've got to do it. Karen really doesn't have the time to go in there and look at it. And then we just talked also about the Finance Committee reserve account. Okay, so that, if you want to have a good use of the Finance Committee reserve account, well, maybe it's to help us get out of that hole.
Okay. All right. Next item we've got is the assessor division. I just had, it's not really a numerical question. I just don't know what the difference is between contract hire consultants and other professional services. They total about $78,000. Can you just give me a definition of what the difference is? Because I would think that contract hire consultants are in our professional services.
So, let's see. So, for other professional services, those were, they're kind of interchangeable, but yeah, so you could have them under one line item, but I know the departments for other professional services for the assessor, they were using this line to hire, they requested a service for
Personal property?
personal property, and so they would be doing an evaluation, looking at a personal property, just due to the number of staff that they have, they're not able to get to all the properties within the town, so this will allow the assessor to have more access to seeing if there's any additional increases in personal property, which would be looking at our new growth. But, you'd have to go from house to house, condo, to see what improvements were done. So that's for that line. And then contract hire services, I know sometimes they do the reval and sometimes they'll put them in a different line. But I can check with the assessor to give you a definite answer of what they use each line for. We try to work with the departments this year to kind of eliminate, make sure that the expenses are going into the proper chart of account.
Right. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I think I remember they did, we should ask them, but I think the assessors did tell us before, like if they do maps or something with maps, there's a difference between hiring a service or a contractor to come in and do something for you, so they did have differences in their
Okay.
line items.
Other questions? Nope. Treasurer collector department? I don't really see not much of a change from last year. Any comments you want to make, Karen? No? It's fine.
Within that department, the treasury department, right now, we have a vacancy, which is our payroll coordinator. And so we're going to be looking to fill that position within the next couple of weeks. We're going to be doing interviews in a couple of weeks in that position. We also have a new assistant treasurer. Some of the goals that I have for that department is really on cross-training and getting an understanding and training on municipal finance and how the workflow between the accounting department and the treasurer's office works. And so, I just want to make sure that, everyone has a proper training. We have new staff. And that they understand, some of the procedures and work within that department. We are having a meeting, Department of Revenue is going to be coming to the town to kind of go over and work with both the treasurer and the accounting department in terms of workflows, best procedures, and in different reporting that we should be doing moving forward so that we can address some of the areas that have come up in the past of some of the deficiencies that we've had.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, nice tight budget. I appreciate this very much. You see there's no cuts on the right-hand side.
Yep, I saw that. I guess legal fees are just a wag that we're doing right now.
I guess so, yeah.
and stop me if anybody has questions, information technologies?
Yes.
I've got one.
What, the Vadar expense?
No, well, no, well, that too, I've got, what is looking at the computer software in Vadar, what, is that SoftWrite in Vadar? I mean, it's $185,000, which, when we first went with Vadar, it was supposed to cut our costs in half, because I think SoftWrite was going to take us to the next version, which was gonna cost a lot. I don't know, what's in that 185?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so working with Mr. Neely, his original request was $227,000 within the software line. I felt that, looking at the past and looking at some of the software, that we could reduce that budget. So together, we reduced it to the amount that you currently see in the budget. So with the items for services that we have the Vadar is currently $52,000. SoftWrite is $37,000. We have professional development training, that's for $4,000. We have other software, software subscriptions, Adobe, Venware.
All the software licenses. are
All
in
the
there.
software licenses. We have town-wide site hosting. We have town telephone licensing and maintenance. We have the domain reviews. So there's a list of items that cover that amount.
If we could get some more flesh behind that for like the final, in the future, I guess, just a big number like that, just break it down.
Oh, sure, I can give you a breakdown. The breakdown that John Neely has provided is actually more than we have in the budget, but I felt that, as
question.
we...
Sorry, Patrick, question?
Just a clarification. What does Vadar cost and what does SoftWrite cost? Would you say that again, please?
So right now, Vadar is $52,000.
Yeah.
In SoftWrite, we're paying $37,000.
I thought you said 77.
No, $37,000 is
52, so
covering
that's
the school
30.
portion. And with Vadar, we have to look at different options, because with Vadar, this is only covering users that we currently have, and they're mainly on the town side. And Vadar has increased costs depending on the number of users you bring on. So I'll be working with the school department to look at what that number is really going to look like if we have all the teachers that need access to be able to input purchase orders, because they use purchase orders for everything that they order. So we're looking at other software systems as well. One might be Munis, because when you look at the aggregate, we may be able to afford a system that will be more efficient, and then you can eliminate maybe Hoppers, eliminate Vadar, eliminate software, and have a system that does everything.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why is that the school software on the front side? You just said SoftWrite from the school, isn't it? Should that be on the school side?
I'll have to look into that. We do payroll, but I can look into that and see if there's any cost that they pay for SoftWrite. But and I can check with John to see what that covers as well.
The next time I've got in IT is the copier lease contracts. That was a shared cost in prior years, but that's also town and school, so I'd like to know why it's all on the town's books.
I agree.
Yeah.
We've also talked about that the last two budget seasons, and I thought we were going to be splitting that out.
That's the way I understood it.
It used to be a shared cost, remember? We called it shared, and then
Yeah.
it went into the town bucket.
Right.
I can find out, I can find more information about the copier. When we met to go over the financial policies and looking at the fixed liabilities, this was not listed as a fixed liability, and so
No,
this is
absolutely.
why.
It shouldn't be a fixed liability, but should be a direct cost into school and town.
We can look into see what the school's, paying, because maybe it's something we can split.
So just, there's two things you're looking at. One is the SoftWrite, and the other one is
The copier, yes.
copier. Anybody have any questions on the town clerk? Elections and registrations? We're flying along. Conservation Commission. I just would point out there, though, are we taking that position to full-time? That's what's in this budget?
Yes.
Mr. Gannon?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. And I think we talked about this before, about someone assisting the earth removal committee. Is that something that we could, is that part of the extra time that would be allowed to this position, so we can get someone over to help those folks out?
I think that was in Board of Health that was doing that.
But not everybody's zoning, it, correct?
Correct, the Board of Health is no longer doing it. I have talked to the chairman of the Earth Removal Committee. I will talk to him again about bringing somebody on. It is not in the duties of the Conservation Commission agent. The Conservation agent, he has additional duties to take care of. He has a lot of land mass to take care of in this town. I can tell you right now, I was still surprised at this, as continue to be. I received a citizen complaint about a playground. Went to the Recreation Department. They told me it wasn't their responsibility. Went to O&M, told me it wasn't really their responsibility. Well, come to find out, this playground was the Conservation Commission's responsibility. I don't think I've ever heard of that before in my entire career. So there are, and I know there's a lot of property in town. I understand that, a lot of open space, rural town. But that's also a lot of, trails to maintain, a lot of things to take care of, a lot of things just to have your eye on. So because those are his hours. And then the workload here, we have a lot of cranberry bogs, a lot of wetlands. There's a lot for the agent to be doing in this town. But I will get on to that agent about the earth removal committee. I think that's a very important position.
So right now, if we wanted to put someone to help out the earth removal committee, that's unbudgeted, we don't have any funds for it?
Well, they have a separate revolving fund they pay for. They were paying for the health agent to do the work out of their revolving fund, so it isn't a budget item for us.
So would you
Saga.
hire somebody for a revolving fund?
Yeah, that's something, we could hire a part-time employee, yes.
But if that fund depletes, how would you pay the employee?
Well, that fund is replenished by the earth removal committee fees. So, it would be fee,
Yeah.
it would be, and that'd be something I want to tell the person when we hire them, again, you probably really want to look at part-time. I don't remember how many hours the Board of Health agent was it was less than 10. Less
It was
than
a
10 a month.
pretty short time that he actually worked with them. It wasn't
Yeah.
a long
He-
period.
Again, and right now, they feel with the procedures they have in place, the earth removal committee, that they don't need somebody to drive around looking at these facilities as much as they did before. I want to say they didn't have the oversight that they really needed in years past.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, it's also kind of very different committee now,
Correct, the makeup of the committee.
different chair, and I think the oversight is better.
All right. What do we have next? Redevelopment Authority, that's just minor, I guess. Planning? The only thing I noticed on planning is the department head salaries flat between years. That's correct? Just seems unusual, but I'm okay with it. Any,
I'm sorry, what was your question?
the department head salary for planning didn't change much between 25 and 26? Actually went down.
I can look into that, but we,
Sorry, Sagal?
I'm sorry, can I just say something?
Yes.
I think I questioned that at our meeting back in December. It had something to do with the budget of 25, not quoting correctly. His budget was wrong.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I remember that.
I mean, I can look into that for you,
Okay.
but I know that the numbers that we have in here are based on his current salary rate. One thing that,
Isn't this budget to budget? Isn't that what we're saying?
this is, where are we, yes.
So I think if we looked actual, year to date times.
I have to look to see if the budget for FY '25 and prior were accurate based off of what we had. One thing that you're seeing is that some of the salaries for the department heads included their stipends. And so I have a stipend line because you shouldn't, your salary increase isn't an increase based off of your salary plus your stipend. Your salary increase is your increase on your actual salary, not your salary plus all your different stipends. And so that's one thing that as you're going through the budget, I have separated anyone that receives a stipend that is actually a line item. Some of the department salary budgets included everybody's stipend under one particular line, but I've separated that just to, for transparency in reporting.
But 2 years ago, I think there was a COLA adjustment that was done at the last minute, and so the numbers weren't exactly,
Agreed, yeah.
that's what ended up happening. They weren't the actual to what the person was making.
Exactly.
There was a couple of mistakes, I remember, in a couple of positions. So that might be that, too.
I can look into that and give you more information.
All right, zoning is zoning. Do you have any questions for you to stop? Capital outlay, minor. The only thing, just minor changes, I don't get a stipend on here, it's in the budget, but unless somebody else comes on, then they'll get it, so you can do that.
Yeah, and that's why I left it. I mean, some of the, and I put together a list that you'll see in your binder for the board members. I wanted everyone to see all of the boards and the committees for the town and what they're actually getting for the stipends. I included some, you'll see some departments where I've increased it because there's vacancies, and it should be in there if they're gonna, but some people, like you're saying, John, have opted not to get the stipend, but I still keep it in there just in case that person leaves and the next person comes in and they're like, where's my stipend? We have it budgeted.
Yeah, we do need to budget for it. Part of the finance committee is a good example. We have a number of vacancies there, and if people came on board and they wanted to take the stipend, then we'd have to have it available to be able to give it to them.
Makes sense. And if it's okay with the board, we do have the fire department here. Do you want to just go skip police for now, hit fire?
Yeah, sounds good.
Does anybody have any questions related to line items here?
No.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was a question that you asked. So the fire department has a very comprehensive salary sheet for their staff, and Mr. Carter requested a summary going back 5 years. The fire chief isn't here. He did send that to me. It's a lot, so I can provide that to everyone so you can see.
No, I was looking for the buckets that, from last year to this year.
Oh, yes, so I have that. I have
And
those
think-
reports.
I think it's done because I think the chief had it in his booklet.
He does.
So
He does have it
good
in
to
his booklet.
here too as well. just,
Okay, so I can make sure that it goes in here. We can include it. But I do have those
Great.
reports for you.
All right, any questions? No? Nobody? Great. Thank you, guys. Now we go back up to police. I'm not sure if there are any items, anybody has any questions on them. I've got some highlighted items here that, other purchase services were minor, and protective clothing seemed to jump to $25,000. Looks the budget was like almost nothing.
Yeah, I mean, some of the, through you, Mr. Chair, some of the protective clothing has a useful life and expires, and so there's more gear that they need to purchase for the police officers, and know if anyone new comes on, but I know that the police chair had an explanation for why that was increasing this year, and that's one of it, is a useful life and being able to have, to replace the ones that they need.
Okay, anybody? Nope, questions?
Just, Mr. Chairman, one of the tough cuts, there was a request for an additional police officer that need to be cut to balance the budget. And
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
like to look at that. If we've got, it looks like we've got some costs that really are more school than town, as well as other areas that maybe we could look at bringing somebody back on maybe half the year, January 1.
Sure, let's take a look at it.
I would second that. I think that's really
Okay.
important.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't disagree.
John,
I'm
the
sorry.
protective clothing that they
Yep.
bought used to be in capital, so maybe that's why you're.
Oh,
seeing-
that's correct.
Oh.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yep, thank you.
you're right.
Okay, building inspections. Not much of an increase. Again,
Through you, Chair, and you might not have a question, but I just wanted everyone to be aware that within the building department, they cover building, they cover gas, gas inspections, electrical, and weights and measures, and so they're all in separate department codes. I would like to, moving forward, looking at combining that into one department, because you have, inspectors and you have, the electricians that have office supplies. But if you look at the budget, it's very, very low in terms of what they're looking for. And you have the weights and measures. The weights and measures, they bring revenue into the town, and they usually go to like gas stations and making, supermarkets, making sure that the different vendors are adhering to, the weights and measures and making sure that they're not, ripping people off. They do more than that, and they, just in terms of gauging and making sure that they're consistent with compliancy. So those are some things that I'd like to look into next year, because, I think it would be easier if you're looking at that whole department, and then you just have your inspectors, your electricians that make up that particular department, instead of having a completely different department.
Makes sense.
But not to lecture.
Okay. And gas inspections we talked about, electrical you just talked about. Emergency Management Agency. Not much of an increase.
Mr. Chairman, there was a minor increase for the admin on hours from 9 to 12 hours a week. Just the volume of work, and honestly, I think some of that is the difficulty working with Vadar.
That's what I'm hearing. All right, and then, let's see, operations.
EMS, you skipped.
Oh, sorry, EMS, Emergency Medical Services. Do we have any questions or concerns about that?
I know it's not an enterprise fund, but he does run it like it's an enterprise fund, and, he spends the money that comes in there. Very well-run budget, so again, you see on the right side there are no.
Fully funded.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even though they're totally funded departments and they bring revenues, we went through the same process that we went through with every department, looking at areas where we could save, looking at areas where it was originally budgeted that we may not need the money. So Mike did a really good job in terms of all the departments going through their budgets and really trying to, reduce anything if they didn't really need it.
Got it. Next, operations and maintenance. The only question I have here, and I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't this change where we did have step longevity components that were all rolled up into one hourly rate? That got changed 3 years ago, and then that rate increases by a certain percentage, so we talked about going back to the way we used to do it, and not to get into contract obligations, but.
So to speak on that, I can say that, we have a 2% COLA. One thing within the O&M contracts, when you look at their salary pay scale, the step increases were significantly high. Well, they were based off of what was negotiated within the contract. I think there were, I believe, 4% between the steps, and then sometimes it would have a COLA on top of that. If you look at the salary pages, we went with the 2% COLA increase, and then the step increase we had at 2%. We don't know what's going to be negotiated, but, just working with the town administrator, that's the amount that we went with. And then, as you can see, I have the stipends, longevity, and the contract stipends separated so you can see which person is receiving that. And so it's not commingled with the actual salary that they have. And then we have, we have it allocated in terms of overtime. So we did a lot of work with that department just to make sure that we had transparency and the numbers were accurate. I spent a lot of times, not just myself going through these, but meeting with the departments and going through these with them as well.
Great. Any questions?
Just our sheet is missing the total on it, so if we can get an update to that, it'll be.
Yeah, it's
good.
got the category, well, it's on this sheet, but
It fell off
yeah, it fell off this one.
it's page 22, needs an update.
Okay.
It's missing the grand total.
Snow operations consistent between the years, although we should have some savings hopefully this year. Knock on wood.
Through you, Mr. Chair, right now, we actually have spent a lot within the snow and ice budget, and I'll be giving an update in a month, because even though it doesn't snow, we haven't received a lot of snow, they're using a lot of salt. So days where these temperatures have been really cold and raining, we've spent a lot on ice, a lot on salt this year. So I'll be giving an update. That's one account that I actually been looking at every week and praying that there's no snow and no cold weather and we get Florida weather, because we are getting close to being, to the highest percent spent.
There goes the Finance Committee Reserve Fund.
Oh, we're not, I would have had a note out to everyone if I felt like we were that close, but, I'm monitoring that with the department head.
So we don't know. Thank you. Sure, get it, Mr. Hoffman.
Quick question back to operations and maintenance. There's the cemetery operating that wasn't in last fiscal, now it's $20,000. Did that move from somewhere else?
No, through you, Mr. Chair. So what's happened is that the O&M budget includes cemetery for $20,000. It just wasn't put in the budget. There was an oversight, and they have $20,000 in revenue that's transferred from the receipts that they receive for burials that they use. And I'll be coming to the Finance Committee. This is an oversight for the FY25 budget, and it happened in FY24. The $20,000 should have been appropriated within their budget line, and it wasn't. But the revenue to cover those expenditures was actually in there. So I was going to come to the Finance Committee in the springtime and request a transfer of $20,000, because it should have been in the budget, because their revenue is covering that, but it was an oversight, it wasn't in the budget. But that's why you're seeing it in the budget this year, because it's $20,000 that they spend to do cemetery work, and they have $20,000 that they request from the cemetery reserve for receipts to cover that. So for FY25, we have the revenue that was transferred to cover the expenditures, but there was an oversight and the expenditures weren't appropriated.
Okay, thank you.
And this is something they spend every year.
All right, landfill engineering, it just seemed it went up, but the expenses year-to-date don't seem to be there. Is there something big planned for landfill engineering for '26?
So through you, Mr. Chair, could you tell me what page you're looking at?
It says page 24 at the bottom.
For snow and ice?
No, landfill and engineering,
Oh,
75,000.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh, you did skip the snow. Did we
Oh,
skip
did I-
this?
no, I said there was no change.
That,
so-
okay.
There was no change and there was no change in.
No, I know there's no change, but they only spent through 12/31, $27,000, which means,
Oh, they spent a lot more. They're right on line in terms of spending the entire 75. I can, if you look at the budgets that I submitted on Monday, their percent spent compared to where we are in the fiscal year, they're right in line with spending the 75,000.
okay.
If you want additional information, I'd be more than happy to work with the Board of Health Director, and I can get more information in terms of what we're spending, why we're spending.
That would be good.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Not much of a change in Board of Health. Council on Aging, anybody have any questions on Council on Aging? Nope. Feel free to stop me. Veterans,
I have
no change.
I have a quick question.
Which one?
Veterans.
Sure. Tunes?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have a question about why the salary has decreased.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there were different changes in positions, and so when people were hired, they weren't hired at the higher step that previous positions were, and then they had some part-time positions, and then the veterans agents now is working more hours than the previous agent, and then but we still try to keep with the actual budget.
So look
But
at
that's
the
why you're seeing that.
Look at the
that
salary
decrease.
detail sheet. Looks like a switch between the veterans agent and the assistant veterans.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
we did
correct.
switch it, so there really shouldn't be a decrease in salary here, but even though, Ms. Prevail is correct, she did come in at a lower step, so.
The department head went up and the regular salaries went down.
Yeah, that's how it should be, because we switched the hours. Before, the assistant veterans agent was working the majority hours. The veterans agent, I can't recall, was he a retiree?
Yeah, he's retired.
Yeah,
Yes.
he didn't want to work that many hours. He kind of, honestly, it didn't make much sense when I came in here.
Yeah.
The veterans agent should be the one who's doing the majority of the work, and the assistant should be assistant.
Okay, so thank
So
you,
we did switch those over.
thank you.
Okay. And veterans benefits at 250, we feel happy, we're okay with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just working with the new veterans agent, if there are any changes and she feels that there are additional veterans that are looking for services, then we'll definitely bring that to your attention if we need additional money in that fund at some point. But right now, we're pretty much spending looks consistent with what we have budgeted, but that is something that we may want to address. I know Celestine has been I can work with her to find out if she's seeing any new trends.
Great. Library. I think I saw something, what was it? Nope, anybody any questions on our revision? Recreation. Not that I want to change anything, but I know it's based on if the budget allows in future years, I'd like to see us build a recreation department for the town, at least start something, some small process.
Yeah, I would too. I know it's kind of a department without a home. I would like to find a permanent facility for it. I believe their storage is all over town in whatever, kind of shed or building we have available. So I hear you, Mr. Chairman, I can tell you right now.
Agree with that.
All right, next item is, anybody have any questions on the short-term interest or non-excluded debt? I think, Dan, you brought this up a little bit earlier. Do you have any?
No, I'll take a look at the plan later, the schedule, thank you.
These, through you, Mr. Chair, these are all the debt service payments that we make for everything that we currently have issued debt on.
And the short-term interest, just if you have to take out a ban? Is that what that's?
So for the short-term interest, this fund is set aside to cover any bans. So if something unforeseen came up for capital that the town needed to purchase and we didn't have the money, we'd issue a ban. And that ban would cover a payment if we didn't have the money through June. So the money's been in the budget for that. We don't have anything anticipated for capital projects, but that's what that line is for. And if we issue bonds, any insurance costs, we have issuance costs, that we have to pay when we issue debt, and usually we will use that fund to cover that.
And just so I'm clear, and I know we talked about this many, many times, the fire engines are coming off the debt schedule after fiscal '26?
That's correct.
Next item, what do you got? Call firefighters.
See all the insurance things.
Yep, all insurance items. So one thing that I had asked for is some detailed background behind the health insurance budget. Is that something you'll be able to send, or whatever I don't want you to do extra work, but whatever you have that has that detail, I'd like to see it.
I do have information for the quest, and just to share with the rest of the Select Board and Finance Committee and Finance. Mr. Carter was looking for number of employees who has health insurance between the town and the school. I do have that information, and so I share that with you, and I can share it with the rest of the committee, in terms of how we came up with these projections.
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Saga?
Do you get reports looks back that would say, you have a member in your plan and they've exceeded $1 million this year, and this is why your plan's gone up.
We do.
Hide the name that looks like you have a huge claim.
We do have information in terms of claims that we get back. A lot of that information goes through payroll and goes through our treasurer, but working with the treasurer and the payroll, we do have that information.
And then
So,
does that give you some predictive analysis for the next year, if it's gonna go up or not?
oh, absolutely, yes. And so we're definitely looking at trends. This is an area that I definitely would, as I was looking at the job description for the accountant, that I'm looking for my position, within my department, this is an area that I would like to have them oversee as well and look. It's just, it's a lot of research, and I think that, some of our estimates are done based off of prior year actuals. And I really want to be able to, have the staff that can really do a comprehensive analysis on a lot of our benefits that we have.
And you would keep that in the accounting department, not your HR department?
I think there's a split. I think there's a split between that. In our HR department, you have payroll, you have health insurance, you have benefits. I think that there's a lot that needs to be reviewed, but I think that it's interchangeable in terms of the workload that each person could be doing in terms of oversight.
The what? I'm sorry, Dan, sorry.
Yeah. I had a question on the municipal insurance, $411,253. It showed that it did not exist last year. Is that a new item? And if
No,
so-
this was
That's why you
held.
moved down?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. This was within the Select Board's budget. And so when I was working with the Select Board, if you go back to the Select Board's budget, municipal insurance has always been the Select Board's budget. And I felt like this should be housed within benefits because it is the benefit, and it's
Yeah.
not an expense that's actually covered through the Select Board. So if you go back to the Select Board's budget, then you'll see the actuals that were spent. I couldn't put it
I
in
see.
because for this fiscal year, they weren't spent under the benefits. But if you go to page, and I
Okay.
can just show you, if you go to section, if you go to page,
I'm gonna say, if you remember, Mr. Ryan, you
Right,
noted
we-
the $400,000 drop in the town.
I wasn't sure
administrator.
which insurance that was that came out of there, because there were a number of them so we used to have an item that was $320,000. That was employee benefits. That was a separate line item that we voted on, and then we had this 411 rolled into the town administrator budget, okay.
yes, this is not, so this is on page 2.
Yes,
If you look at page 2, under, it's at the very bottom, you'll see municipal insurance.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One other question I have is on the unemployment, $80,000. Now,
Yes.
going back, we talked about this last night at the old ATM articles. We've got a 2017 unemployment number still sitting out there for $54,000. So we kind of talked a little bit about, should it be a reserve or should it be something that's in the operating budget? So right now, the way this is set up, if that 80,000 doesn't get spent, you're going to roll it into free cash the following year?
No, so through you, Mr. Chair, what's happened with the unemployment is that it's been housed in the operating budget. For the FY25 budget, it was stated as unemployment reserve, but in the past, it's always been in the operating budget. Prior to that, it was in a capital article for unemployment, and so when the capital article included transfers and included different funds, and so you have prior year unemployment articles that carry forward from year to year, and the town in the past has utilized these older articles where money has been appropriated to offset any shortfalls during the fiscal year. So in FY24, for unemployment, you may see, a certain amount spent, but the total spent, you'd have to look at some of those old articles. My suggestion would be unemployment is a cost that I think we should have a reserve fund for.
I would agree.
it's in the operating budget right now, but I still think we need to have a reserve fund because you never know what's going to happen, and we have to cover the cost when, not only when people leave the town, but when they're working in other positions and they leave, there's a cost that we have to, that the town has to take on. But that line item for unemployment has increased over the years.
Yes, the other, I guess we talked about this a little bit, is I'm not sure if it's this town meeting or next town meeting, what the process is, but potentially looking to see if the board wants to create a reserve for unemployment and a reserve for health insurance, because we still have that 2016 health insurance sitting out there.
Yes, my suggestion would definitely have a reserve for unemployment, and a reserve for health insurance. You know, depending on what we end up doing with our health insurance. Our health insurance, I know we're part of a Gateway, which is a shared agreement that we have. If at any period of time that we decide to change, or if we want to change to Blue Cross or look at any other options, I think it would be beneficial to have those reserve accounts set up.
Great. Anybody? Are we done? I think we're through the operating budget, right?
Pretty much.
So I don't know if, did the finance committee vote on this already?
Did we what, John?
Did you vote on the budget?
We have not.
not,
We're waiting
okay.
for tonight.
I think that I'd like to look at those costs that we talked about that might not be the town's cost, and look at adding
Okay.
that officer, however, whatever, January 1 or whatever the number appears to be that we can work on. We do have a meeting scheduled for Thursday night to kind of follow up and wrap up the budget. Is the finance committee, you available Thursday night?
And what do you want to do Thursday night?
Well, we don't have a final budget because there'll be changes, potential changes to it.
Okay.
So,
You'll have to ask, you'll have to ask people.
yes.
I can make that day.
What time do you want to meet at?
6, I think we've got 6.
6 o'clock.
I don't think it'll be long.
Will we have everything we need for the meeting, or do you think we need?
Gary?
We have to do it.
We have
30
to
days
do
in
it. We have
advance,
to-
so
All right, so we have
Yeah,
that.
We
done.
can't-
That's our last shot.
6 o'clock
Yeah,
Still?
by the bylaw, we're supposed to post on Friday.
Okay, so we,
Okay, we can all be there.
Great,
Because this will be a quorum too.
super. All right. Well, I guess that's it. So thank you very much. From the finance committee, did you want to, you're welcome to stay, but if you want to withdraw.
We have a, okay, that was quick. All those in favor? Aye. We're done.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Have a great night,
do we need a
guys.
roll call vote for that? I don't think.
Yeah, well,
yeah, you
Technically.
probably.
Why don't we just do it just to make sure?
Okay, Pat Maha, aye.
Elizabeth Salker, aye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
We can disconnect the Zoom,
Okay.
right? 'Cause that was
Good
just
night.
the
I
finance
think we
committee.
can.
Yeah, can we get rid of that?
Yeah, he has to take his laptop anyway.
It is, okay.
All right.
Pat.
And thank you, Karen, for all the
Thank you.
hard work putting this together. I know it's been a lot of late nights, early mornings.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a great opportunity working for the town. We've had some really good meetings, we've had some challenges, but I can say I finally see light at the end of the tunnel, just due to the help of the staff and the department head. So I'm enjoying my time here, and the select board, and the support that you provided me in the finance committee and capital. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
the town administrator as well.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, so next item on the agenda we've got is the approval of Labor Council Clifford and Kenny rate increase for fiscal 2026.
Correct, Mr. Chair, last time we were here, we asked what the hourly rate increase was. So it is a $25 an hour increase. The new rate would be $250 an hour. That's a little bit more than you saw from the KP Law, but they are still, KP Law's at $255 an hour. This is our Labor Council at $250 an hour. We also use them about 20 hours a month on normal circumstances. We've had a little bit more recently where you're going through budget discussions with, with our 4 unions. So we don't use them a lot. And honestly, I always think it's money well spent. We're alleviating from lawsuits by utilizing them because we're asking the questions before action is taken. And I'm a very believer in the proactive nature of that.
That's a pretty substantial increase, but,
10%.
but I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Any questions?
The only thing I would say is that is a pretty substantial increase, and if that continued next year, I might question whether we should,
Yep, we'll
Look
we'll
to-
take a look at it.
you know.
When did they start with the town?
When Mr. Fennessy was here.
Yeah, it was just last year, I think, maybe the year before, not
So-
long.
Yeah, they haven't been here that long.
And a 10% increase.
Yeah.
Okay.
In their first year, 10% increase.
Yeah.
So we'll watch it, and again, we can.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, concerns? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Sarah Hewen says aye. Oh, we're not on the
No,
thing
we're not
anymore?
on
Okay,
Okay.
we're not.
So, aye.
So you got 4-1.
4-1?
Yep.
Oh,
I said no.
oh, sorry, okay.
Too big a jump in too short a period. Update on the American Rescue Plan Act?
Fortunately, our screen isn't working,
Oh, no.
but you do have it in your folders, I know. But it is a nice small update. The municipal well corrosion project for $92,828. We do have an update on the amount spent, $41,253. And actually, think I may have skipped over the middle high school mechanical system for better air quality. We actually expended all of the Plymouth County funds, which was a huge amount, $176,826.92, because the project is coming along. It is in line to be completed in April. So they worked on it February vacation week. They actually were able to do additional work when the kids were back in school because it was in areas that weren't in the classroom. So that timeline is still running on track. The decommissioning of 22 private wells, this seems to be the project with the big hiccup because the town is just reliant on the residents for compliance. So the health agent is working with the residents and the DEP to try to get compliance with that. The Council on Aging deck, unfortunately, the weather has not been cooperating, even just the cold weather and wet conditions.
I have one question on
Mr.
that.
Townsend?
Yeah.
I think when we approved the deck, we also approved money for furnishings for the deck?
So 90,000 was approved. The quote came in at 75,200.
Okay, but what about the furnishings? I
Yeah.
mean, I know we're talking that the deck has not been done because it's been too cold, but have we looked into purchasing the furnishings for the deck?
That I will have to look into.
Okay,
I will look into that.
I think you're right, Mr. Towns. I remember that, too.
yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
And they may not do, just because of the lack of storage down there, they might not want to have that.
I just didn't know if that needed to go out to bid, or if we could just buy them. I don't know what the process is there.
Yeah,
so.
if probably, well, they're not out to bid because if the deck quote was 75,200, then the furnishings would only be about 15,000. So
Okay.
maybe just some quotes.
Thanks.
The generator for Town Hall, we are still waiting on delivery of the generator.
Seems like a long time.
Yeah. It has been.
That's because it has been, Mr. Chairman, that's.
And there is no ETA. The update is that there is no estimated time of arrival for that, unfortunately. And the purchase of the UTV for the fire department, the contract has been signed, and we are awaiting delivery, but we already know that that's anticipated for June. We know that's not coming in anytime soon. So hopefully that will remain on track. And an item that will be dropping off is the electric vehicle for the Conservation and Building Commissioner for $40,503. The car has been delivered. We have the invoice. The invoice is being processed this week. So that will drop off the update. So it is getting smaller.
Good.
More money's being spent.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, any town administrator update?
Sure, I'll be really quick with this, Mr. Chairman. I want you to know the EMS department had their annual state inspection and passed with flying colors. In fact, there were no deficiencies there at all, so, hats off to them. a very good job, again, a well-run department, so. Moving on to the North Carver Water District, and I do know it's late, but there are a couple things. One thing about, we will be going to a meeting to have a budget discussion with the North Carver Water District. If you had a chance to see the Finance Committee meeting that the North Carver Water District came there, the chair proposed a budget of, $1,351,252 is the number I wrote down. Again, he has not discussed this with his board. That is a number that we cannot afford, I can tell you right now. We don't, yes, Mr. Chairman, you have a question?
No, sorry, but the 1,000,003, that's operating expenses, debt, capital?
It seems to be capital built in there too. Again, we need to have this discussion with the chairman of the North Carver Water District. But again, that's just a number that is unsustainable to the town. You know, as it is, we subsidize that account, was it 168,000 last year? I believe the finance director has proposed $200,000 for this year. You know, that, the funding, so, you know, that additional funding would all come from the town, coming out of our free cash.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Mr.
I'm
Townsend?
sorry, Mr. Cannon, did you say that the board, the North Carver Water District Board hadn't voted on that budget?
Correct. They have not, to my knowledge, have not voted on that.
So where did the budget come from?
From the chairman of the North Carver Water
Yes.
District. Proposed, yeah.
Okay,
So we're, again, we have that discussion next Wednesday. We will have that discussion with the chairman there.
thank you.
Can I just ask, at a high level, is the intent, I guess two questions. One is, the billing for services, right? Is that coming off the meter pit? The usage will come off the meter pit usage, right? Not so much the meters on homes, because the meter pit usage is the water we're taking.
Yeah.
If there's a hole in a line someplace, you know, it's usage.
The last bill I saw from the town of Middle Road, they were still using the town of Carver meter readings. So we do have to find out why they're not taking meter readings from the meter pit, because I believe that was the intent.
Yeah, that's
So,
what that-
yeah.
It was.
So I don't know why it still came from the town of Carver meters.
Okay.
Which, some of those are suspect. I do know that for a fact.
Sorry, when's the next meeting? You gonna?
I believe 12th.
Okay.
March 12th, next Wednesday, 5 o'clock, room 4.
Okay.
Then the next thing, the North Carver Water District has also received a DEP enforcement order, I believe for their lack of being able to hire a distribution system operator. If you recall, over the past summer, Middleborough was performing that duty for us. I believe it was in October, Middleborough did send them a letter, 30-day notice, telling them they would no longer be their distribution system operator. At that point, the North Carver Water System was required to bring somebody on board. I believe they did put out 2 RFPs. Again, I have not reviewed those RFPs. They got no responses to them, so I don't know where DEP is going to go with this, but I have been invited to the meeting. I will report back to the board and let you know.
Mr.
Townsend.
Chairman, sorry, one more question. So they're getting enforcement orders from the DEP because they don't have an operator. They're trying to hire an operator, but they can't get anyone to take the job. What happens if they can't find anybody to do the job? I mean, they're trying to find somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Mr. Townsend. Again, I'll report back to the board. I'll see what DEP has to say about that. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
Any other issues?
that's all. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Great. I guess we do have one issue that's come up in the last 48 hours. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve a request for a fishing tournament at Sampson's Pond, East Side Sports Fishing Club?
Motion
So
to approve.
Oops.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. And would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of February 11th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions, changes, nothing? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Select board announcements, I'll start away, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the Avenues of Honor Committee, we are very close to having 25 nominations already submitted to the Veterans Agent. The reason I mentioned 25 is because we have 25 town-owned polls, and those are the ones we're going to use to start with. We are investigating getting brackets so that we can have actually 4 per pole, which would increase the number to 100. But I think we're going to have at least 25 for our Memorial Day kickoff, which would be really nice. People have been terrific and sending us their original photographs, so kind of scary. But just so the public knows, nominations are still open, even if we only do 25 this time. It's still open. And our next meeting, we're going to be deciding on the actual vendor. It's taken a while because these things take a while. But we're getting there, so it's kind of exciting.
Maybe you can add how people can apply to. You can
Sorry?
Let them know how they can apply.
Yes, well, they can go online, they can download the nomination papers, they can call the Veterans Office, they have town hall regular hours, 8 to 4, 8 to 12 on Friday, or they can email our veterans agent, celestine.cruz@ma.gov.
Something like that, carverma.gov. Yeah.
So is the goal for Memorial Day to have,
To have at least those 25 polls with at least one
Yeah.
veteran or service member on them, yeah. And we had decided to do it first come, first serve, just because we're limited with polls. But hopefully we'll go over that, and maybe we'll have more than 25,
it's awesome.
yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Ryan?
It's budget season, so I just want to recognize and thank everyone that's been working hard on getting the budget ready for town meeting, to include the finance director, town administrator and his office, and finance committee and capital outlay. I know it's a lot of work, so people should recognize all the hours that go into it, all the planning. So just wanted to recognize and thank everybody that's been working on that.
Mr. Townsend?
I have nothing this evening.
I just want to echo Mr. Ryan's comments and congratulations. We got it done on time, almost. We got Thursday night. Should be able to make the deadline. And I think Mr. Gannon reached out to members of the board. We may have to have another meeting. Did we have it scheduled on a date for an article?
For the
to
11th.
Get caught up in articles?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, hopefully to catch up on articles, then we'll still have our regular meeting on the 18th with State Senator Kelly Dooner and State Representative John Gasky, to particularly talk about the MBTA, but, there'll be other issues we can discuss with them. I know double polls are an issue out there. I believe Senator Dooner is the one who filed legislation about the adjacent MBTA communities.
He is.
She'll be very knowledgeable about that. I think that'll be a very good conversation to have.
So is the meeting on the 11th a definite meeting, or are we
Yes.
still definite?
Yes, we have a number of articles that are ready for review, so.
And we're meeting on Thursday also, this Thursday?
Yes,
At
the
6
6th.
o'clock here, and then on
Yes.
the 11th, okay.
And since time is somewhat of the essence, anything we're looking at, can we get an issue by legal that they review the verbiage and everything is right, that everything is approved? Because we've had some issues with language not being right.
Okay, yes, we will.
Yeah. All right, sorry, Mr. Harper, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say we have, so just to clarify, meeting Thursday, then the 11th, then the 18th.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Are both the meeting Thursday and the meeting of the 11th, are they here?
Yes.
They're both in this room?
Yes,
Okay.
And where's the meeting on the 18th?
here.
Okay.
All here.
So they're all in this room?
They're all,
Okay.
Yep.
Good point.
Mr. Ryan?
And are we going to do the meet and greet before the,
Yes.
on the 18th? Maybe we should announce to people it's going to be half hour, an hour before we start?
we were taking a half hour.
That's on the,
Makes sense.
which
The
date?
18th?
18th. So what time will the meet and greet be?
5:30.
5:30.
Okay,
Does that work for you, Mr. Ryan?
yes. That
Okay.
should.
And that's the
works
meet
with
and
them.
greet for the state senator and,
Yes.
Yep.
and the representative. Just
All
make
right.
sure everybody knows.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. Thank you, and good night, everybody.